All right, we are back for part two. At the end of part one, I was talking about how if you had bought Las Vegas Sands stock in March of 2009, you could have got it for about $2 or less. I think when I look back through the records, it actually dipped as low as about $1.46 per share, but let's just call it $2 a share. Now here was a stock that had been up at 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, $100 that was beaten all the way down to $2. And I'm frustrated because I lived here in Las Vegas. I moved here in 2007. I wasn't working at the Venetian at that point, but I knew about it. I played poker there, and so I actually knew that that stock had gotten beaten all the way down to $2, and there was some talk about the company going bankrupt and this and that. What I found, and it's a famous Warren Buffett quote, is that you want to buy when there is blood in the streets. When everybody else is running for the hills and thinks that you're crazy for buying stuff, that is the best time to buy it. The worst time to buy something is when you're going through the grocery store line and the checker in the grocery store line says, "Oh my gosh, have you bought any Bitcoin lately? Oh my gosh, I just got my third house." Because when things get to the point that they're so that excited that somebody that knows nothing about nothing is telling you, "Oh, hey, you ought to buy some Bitcoin," which is how it was last year when Bitcoin was at, closing in on $20,000. People were telling me left and right, "Oh man, you got to buy some Bitcoin, you got to buy some Bitcoin." And people that bought Bitcoin at that point lost a lot of money. Same thing in real estate here in Las Vegas. Back before that real estate bubble in 2009, the stat that I heard was that the average person in Las Vegas owned 2.5 homes. Well, guess what? The average person doesn't know how to be a real estate investor. So when you start hearing stats like that, it should make you nervous. And when you're going through the grocery store line and somebody tells you, "Hey, I just bought my third house," and they're a checker for Albertsons, most likely that is a time to start getting worried and think to yourself, "Hey, I own a few houses. Maybe now's a good time to get out of the market." Or with your Bitcoin, and you bought Bitcoin at 2 or 3 or 4,000, and now it's 17, 18, 20,000, and your checker starts talking about Bitcoin and how you ought to buy some. Maybe that's a good time to maybe think about selling some of your Bitcoin. Well, the exact opposite is true. When everybody's running for the hills and everybody thinks that the sky is falling and the stock is going out of business, that would have been a great opportunity. And unfortunately for me, I didn't do two things that I'm going to recommend that you do. Number one is get ready. I wasn't ready. I was spending more than I made. I was in debt. I didn't have any cash flow really at the time. So I didn't have a ton of money to invest into an opportunity, number one. So what I recommend you do after watching this video is put a plan of action together. Start saving and getting some cash. Cash is king, especially when things go down like this and opportunities arise. So of course it sounds simple, and I know we've heard it, many times in our lives. Spend less than you make, save some, invest some, and and plan for the future. But it's true. If you're watching this channel and you have a desire to have a better life than you have now, then you have to change some things. You got to do some things different, because what you've done up to this point in your life to get you where you're at hasn't worked. If you're not already financially independent and you're not living the dreams and the goals and the desires of your life, then it's time to look at what you're doing and see if it's working. Now, if you can look at what you're doing and say, "Hey, it's really working. I just need to do it for a few more years longer and I'm going to get to where I want to be," fantastic. But most people will say to themselves, "Man, if I keep doing what I've been doing for the next 10 years, that I did for the last 10 years, I'm not going to be anywhere near where I want to be in life. In fact, I'm going to just be in the same spot that I'm in or worse." Then it's time to make some changes. And one of those changes is to get ready by getting some money built up. So the first thing that I did wrong back in 2009 is I didn't have a bunch of money to take advantage of a situation like this. The second thing that I did is I listened to my friends and family and my broke neighbor and my brother-in-law about the Las Vegas Sands and why it could potentially go bankrupt. I talked to a bunch of people that didn't know anything, that weren't experts. It's like a story I heard about this guy back in the gold rush days that had got this gold mine. He thought he had a great area, and he put a stake down on this mountainside, and he went to work digging for gold. And he thought he really had a great spot, and he dug and he dug and he dug and he dug, and he worked his butt off for 6 months, 12 months, and wasn't finding gold. Every once in a while he'd find a little teeny speck of gold, but he wasn't finding any gold. And he got frustrated, and he got sick of it. And so there was kind of a poor old guy that used to travel through the area that would make a few dollars by cleaning up and cooking for somebody, doing some stuff. And long story short, this miner sold this guy his stake for a few dollars, including his equipment, his pickaxe and his shovel and his equipment. And so this guy, who hadn't had any success in his life, that had nothing, that was much worse off than the miner, did one thing that was intelligent. He hired an expert to survey the land and tell him whether or not there was any gold. And the surveyor came back to him and told him, hey, you're not going to believe what I found. The land that you have is part of one of the biggest gold stores, I believe, that the world has ever seen. The guy that owned the land was digging in the wrong spot. If he would have been digging over here 100 yards west of where he was digging, he would have found the biggest gold store that the U.S. has ever seen. And that guy ended up becoming a multi-millionaire, all because he consulted an expert. If the miner that owned the land first had went to an expert and asked him where to dig, he'd be the millionaire. Well, it's the same thing with your finances. Why would you ask your broke sister-in-law about buying stocks? You know, why would you ask somebody that's never bought one cryptocurrency in their life, hey, what do you think about investing in cryptocurrencies? Find somebody that's had success and that is an expert in an area and get their opinion. Long story short, I didn't do that. I didn't get an expert opinion, and so in the fear that the Las Vegas Sands was going to go all the way down from the $2 that it was at to nothing, I never bought any, because even though I was struggling, I could have scraped together a couple, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 and bought some Las Vegas Sands. My point is, long story, I apologize, but to get to the point, 3 years and 1 month later, Sand stock had rebounded all the way up to $78 a share. So $2,000 turned into $78,000 in 3 years. So imagine if you would have had $10,000 lying around that you could have invested, you would have ended up with $390,000 for your 10 grand. How many of you out there, had you invested 10,000 into an idea in March of 2009, and now you have 390,000 in 2012? How many of you would have changed your life? How many of you maybe own a house the house that you want to own, or just a house in general? Or, there's a lot of things that you could do with $390,000, and $10,000 isn't a ton of money. And if $10,000 is a ton of money, just think, what would 2,000 turned into 78,000 do for you? Opportunities like that can change your life. MGM Grand Stock was another one that did a very similar thing, but I just wanted to give the one example. But you can go back to that time frame back in 2009, and you could probably find 50 stocks that you could have invested in back then, a few $1,000, that by right now you would be totally wealthy because of the market correction. Well, this is kind of a lead-in to the next segment, which is going to be one of my favorite cryptocurrencies. One of the things that I love about it is not only do I believe that it's going to give people an opportunity to create some incredible capital gains, it's also a cryptocurrency that will spit off cash flow. Because one of the things that I love about the Las Vegas Sands stock that we didn't even talk about is it is a dividend producing stock. So on top of all of the capital gains that you would have made, the stock going from $2 a share to 78, you would have also been making dividends all the way along the way. So your 390,000 might have actually been worth a lot more than that when you factored in the dividends that you would have made. So In the next video, I'm going to be going over one of my favorite cryptocurrencies called Ontology and doing a deep dive into it, how it can profit you and how it can set you up for some amazing cash flow. And one thing that I do want to do here is I do want to put a little bit of a disclaimer out there. I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just sharing my opinion with you, and it's up to you to go do your own research. Go do your own due diligence and double check what I say. And you should do that with anybody that's claiming to be an expert in an area. But when I go through and explain the ontology example tomorrow, it's for entertainment purposes and it's just an idea. Then you can go look, you can do your due diligence. I also recommend never, especially in cryptocurrencies, but in all investing, never invest more than you can afford to lose. If you decide to invest in cryptocurrencies, I can almost guarantee you that at some point in time, you will be down 50, 60, 70, 80% in your cryptocurrency. There's also going to be times where you're up 500, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000%, but you have to be ready for some volatility in the cryptocurrency space. So with that, guys, this ends part 2. Part 3 is going to be coming at you tomorrow. We're going to be doing a deep dive on ontology. I look very much forward to it. Thank you for your time. Definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the alert button. And God bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow.